Welcome to Pateo Television. My name is Johan Oldenkamp, and in this 40th episode of Pateo TV, we're going to talk about the deception by the Kennedys. And I already announced this in episode 39 of Pateo Television at the end of that episode. And the release date of this 40th episode of Pateo TV on the Kennedy deception is July the 16th. In the year 2017. Yeah, the year 2017 is not that important. It is important that it is on July the 16th. And it has everything to do with numerology. The month July is in our current calendar the 7th month. So July is a 7, and 1 plus 6 is also a 7. So this date, you can see it as a 7-7 plus then a year. Let me start by giving you a crash course in numerology. Yeah, as I said in the previous episode, episode 39, which was on the JFK case, I announced this already. And the date of that JFK case is very important because it's 1963, November 22. And numerology tells us what the meaning is of this date, or what is the value. Let us first look at the value of the year. It's a 1, a 9, a 6, and a 3. And if we add all these 4 ciphers up, then we get 19. And then we can continue with this addition. So 1 plus 9 gives a 10. And that is still not a single digit, so we continue 1 plus 0, and that is a 1. So the numerological value of the year 1963 is a 1. The numerological value of the month November is an 11, and we don't add this up because these are twice the same number, so the value is already a 1, but it's a double 1, and the same is true for the 22, which is a double 2. These are so-called master numbers, and we don't add them up to respectively 2 or 4. But we can add up these two. So November 22 is also important, just like July 16 is 7-7, so is November 22 a 33 value, and that's also very important. And of course, then we can continue. We can add up the 33 and the 1, then we get 34. Add up the 3 and the 4, and we get a 7. So the total value of this date is a 7. But I'm stressing now November 22 because that's very important. Remember November 22. And we can not only convert a date into a numerological value, but also any words. And then we simply transform, or how we call it, we change each letter into a cipher. So the A becomes a 1, the B a 2, and so on, until the I is a 9. And then we can continue. The J is a 10, but the 1 plus the 0 becomes a 1, and so on. Yeah, now we add up the 1 and 1 to get a 2, because the value of the K is a 2, but it's also an 11. Yeah, KKK is actually 3 times 11, so it's 33. But that's something for another video. Yeah, until the R is 18, which is 9, and then the S is a 1, until the Z, which is 26, becomes an 8. So by using this table, we can convert every letter into a cipher, and then we can add up all the ciphers until we reach the value. That's how numerology works in a nutshell. Yeah, there's much more to find on this also on my website, Pateo.nl, but do your own homework so that you know a little bit about numerology. Okay, now we start with the video. I'll switch off my camera, that's no longer necessary. Yeah, we start with the Kennedy deception. And it has everything to do with this man, Joseph Patrick Kennedy. He was named Joe, but his full name was Joseph Patrick because it was the reverse of the first names of his father. He was named Patrick Joseph. And PJ, as he was called, PJ was in politics. He was a member of the Democratic Party in Massachusetts. And it is very important to notice that he had two grandfathers, yeah, the father of his mother, Mary Augusta Hickey, and the father of his father, P.J. Kennedy. Both his grandfathers died on November 22. Is this a coincidence? Well, if you've seen what happened in 1963 on that date, then you can connect the dots. And by the way, these four grandparents of Joe, they were all immigrants from Ireland because there was a great Irish potato famine in the years 1945 up to 1948. So 4 years in a row, the harvest did not come through, so to say, and therefore there was a great famine. And many Irish people came then to the USA. And that's not only true for his parents, but also for the parents of his wife, as you will soon see. Anyway, he was born in this family, so these were his parents, and he had two elder sisters, Mary Loretta and Margaret Louise. And he also had a younger brother, but that brother died within the first year of his life. So he grew up with only two sisters. And his elder sister, she married later to George William Connolly, and this younger, also older sister, but the one that was younger than that, she married to Charles Joseph Burke. So that's his family, the family of Joe Kennedy. Yeah, the father of JFK, so to say. And his father, so the grandfather of JFK, later became a banker. That's relevant for this story. We'll see that. And what is also relevant is that they were Roman Catholics. Yeah, these two details are very important for the story. And he later married to Rose Elizabeth Fitzgerald, and she was the daughter of a man that was named Honey Fitz. His real name was John Francis Fitzgerald, but he was also a member of the Democratic Party, but he was a rival of P.J. Kennedy. And he was mayor of Boston twice. So I think he was a little bit more successful in politics than P.J. Kennedy. And what is important here to note is, well, her grandfather was of course a Fitzgerald from her father's side, but her grandmother from her mother's side was also a Fitzgerald. Isn't that remarkable? Because those two, they were cousins. Yeah, their fathers were brothers. And the same story here, these four grandparents of Rose Elizabeth Fitzgerald, they came to the USA because of the famine in Ireland. And of course, that's how they met. Yeah, they had the same roots. This Rose, she became really old. She died at the age of 104 years. And when she was in old age, she was known as a philanthropist because she had a lot of money. I'll come back to this. Yeah, these people were loaded. And even the Vatican declared her to be a countess. Well, to me, that's a red flag, of course. If the Vatican thinks you did something good, well, we'll have a look at it later on. Yeah, so that's the story of these people. And they, of course, they got married. And because they got married, they became really powerful. Because, of course, the mayor of Boston was powerful, but P.J. Kennedy was also very powerful. These were the two most powerful families of Boston in those days. And because they got married, Rose and Joe, they got a lot of power. Yeah, that's what happened here. Joe, when he was 26 years old, married Rose when she was 24. And then these two families merged, and they became the #1 power family in Boston, Massachusetts, USA. And look at numerology. The total value of the birth date of Joe is a 22. Yeah, in numerology, that means master builder. And the 11 is the numerological value of the date of Rose. It doesn't happen a lot that people have a master number as a total value. And these two married. So the total value of them together is a 33. which is very, very rare and very, very remarkable. In total, they had 9 children. Yeah, 9 is the number of completion. And of course, together they are with 11. 11 is again a master number. It's all relevant to me. The first son was named after his father, so it became Joe Jr. Then Jack, later he became known as JFK. Then Rosemary, then Kik, then Eunice. Yeah, these are all the common names, not the official names. Then Pat, and then Bobby. Bobby later became known as RFK. Yeah, but for the family he was named Bobby. Then Gene, and the one who became later Senator of the USA, Edward Moore Kennedy, he was commonly known as Ted, or in the beginning, Teddy. And here you see the family dressed up in bathing suits because they were at Haines's Port. This was taken in 1928. And we know that he was a patriarch, this Joe Kennedy. But what is written down in this book is not even half the story. Its story goes further, much further than what is said here. Yeah, that's what we'll see in this video. Yeah, here again you see the same 1928 time when they were here in the Atlantic Ocean, bathing, swimming. Yeah, here you see the family again, father and mother to the right hand side from us point of view, our point of view. And look at the name Kennedy. Yeah, I've explained in the beginning what numerology can do to a name. Well, what is the value of this name? Yeah, these are the values of the individual letters of this name. And if we add them all up, we get 33. Is this all a coincidence? Well, you can think like that, but I don't think so. Yeah, this is all meant to be. Yeah, there's another picture of the family, father and mother here, and the children. Yeah, Joe is just as big, you can see it here, just as big as his father. Yeah, the one lacking in this picture, or is this JFK? I'm not really sure. I think he's lacking, but doesn't really matter. Here we see all 11 of them. Yeah, even Ted or Teddy is sitting in between the legs of his father. So here you see the family of 11. It was taken in 1933. And 1 year later, this picture was taken. Again, all 11 present on the picture. All smiling and all happy. Yeah, this is the man who became later the president of the USA. The 35th, to be precise. Here you see Father Joe and his son, his eldest son, also Joe. So this is Joe Sr. and this is Joe Jr. This is Bobby, and here you see Jack, or JFK as many people call him. Again, Joe Sr. with Joe Jr. on his right hand side, and on his left hand side his other son Jack. Jack was a little bit taller than Joe. Yeah, his brother Joe. And yeah, we already talked about numerology. What about this date? Yeah, what is the value of this date, numerological value? Can you do the math quickly? It's a 777 date, and that is very remarkable and very rare. Here you see the 11, yeah, and the dates of the years in which they were born, from 1915, that was Joe, until 1932, and that was Ted or Teddy. And Ted or Teddy, Edward Moore Kennedy, was born in the year 1932, but on the date February 22, which is 222. And 222 is also the date on which was born George Washington, one of the founding fathers of the USA. And exactly 200 years before Ted Kennedy. So many twos here, don't you think? And of course, we saw the 22 for this date, the date where Joe Sr. was born. And when we look at the numerology for Jack, we find a total value of 7. And the name Jack is numerologically also a 7. And the story is not complete here because also Joseph Patrick, if we take these two first names of the father and also the elder brother, it's a 7. To me, this is all meaningful. Yeah, here we see the names again. So Joe Jr. is the elder son, then Jack, then Rosemary, then Kik, then Eunice, then Pat, then Bobby, then Jean, and then Ted. And 5 of these people play a major role in this story. Let us first look at the career of Joe Sr. Yeah, he graduated in 1912, and then he started working in the banking industry. Yeah, he became immediately a president. Isn't that a splendid way to start your career? President of Columbia Trust, and he was only 25 then. Yeah, next year he married Rose, and in 2017 he changed his career to shipbuilding. Yeah, he went to work with the Bethlehem Shipbuilding Corporation, and he became the assistant general manager. Why? And of course, the word Bethlehem is also meaningful to me. Anyway, then he became a broker, and he did not worry too much about ethics, so he made a lot of money then, and he made even more money during the Prohibition. Yeah, because from 1920 until 1933, it was prohibited to produce and to sell and to transport beverages with alcohol. So during this bootlegging, he made a lot of money. And of course, he was working with the mafia, with the mob. And then he had a romance, or yeah, really an affair with Gloria Swanson. She was an actress, and first he took over all her financial business. Yeah, so he took take care of her finances, and he also entered into the movies industry. And he decided to produce, yeah, a kind of film for her. It was a silent film, Queen Kelly, but the film didn't bring the success that he hoped for. And maybe he was disappointed with her or the film, but the relation ended after this movie. And Queen Kelly has nothing to do, by the way, with Grace Kelly, because she was born in the same year that this movie was released. So it could not have done anything with her name, of course. And then he became friends with this man. He's commonly known as FDR, but his real name is Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Yeah, he became the 32nd president of the USA, and he was president for 12 years, so 3 terms. That's really long. And he was really powerful. And yeah, Joe Kennedy became friends with him, but FDR didn't want him to be in his cabinet, if that's the right word, in his administration, because yeah, his history, yeah, the relation with the mob and other things. So that's why he supported him, but not all the way Joe really would have wanted it. Yeah, he was elected Man of the Year or something, not sure, but anyway, there was an issue of Time magazine dedicated to this Joe Kennedy, so the patriarch, the father of the family. And he got some jobs in politics. He was chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission. It was happened in 1934, and later he was also head of or chairman of the Maritime Commission. Yeah, both time chairman. But that's not really what he wanted. He wanted to be vice president, or at least something like that. And because FDR thought of him as a threat, he thought it was better that he was sent out. So he made him ambassador in England. Ambassador to England, so he was sent to London. But only 3 years later, in 1940, he already resigned this position. So FDR wanted to support him, but he also saw the risks. Here you see a picture where FDR is shaking the hand of Joe Sr. Yeah, this is the moment he was told that he was appointed as ambassador to England. Happened in January 1938. So in other words, he was sent off to London. And when he was in London, when he was ambassador to England, he went to Rome because of the coronation of the guy who called himself Pope Pius XII. Yeah, he is his real name, doesn't really matter too much. But the whole Kennedy family went to the Pope. Yeah, this happened in 1938, March 12. Here you see a depiction of this guy, Pacelli. But we all know there is a white Pope, but also a black Pope. So at this date, Joe Kennedy had a secret meeting with the black Pope, and here you see his name. And by doing that, he became an active member. He was, so to say, he was activated as an asset for the Jesuits. So then he became a puppet working for the Jesuits. And the Jesuits, if you don't know about this, they are the military, secret military organization of the Vatican. Or you can call it also the intelligence agency. But the Jesuits are much more powerful than the NSA, the CIA, the Mossad, and former KGB. You can name them all, added up together. Yeah, the real thing here are the Jesuits. They are the most powerful and the most dangerous organization on this planet. And Joe Kennedy started to work for them, and it happened here. And then a tragedy happened because his eldest daughter, Rosemary, she was a little bit retarded, and he decided that she should have a brain surgery. And that happened in the year 1941, but the surgery went bad, and she got profoundly brain damage. And after that, she had to be sent to a nursing home because she was no longer able to take care of herself. So there was a deep tragedy for the family. I think this was unintended, of course. But then this story. Yeah, Kathleen Agnes Kennedy, she was named Kik, and Kik married this man. Yeah, so-called guy of nobility. William John Robert Cavendish. Yeah, he was Marquis of Hartington. Here you see his father and there his mother. You can clearly see that they are related. Anyway, somehow Kik thought this was an attractive guy, and she married him. She married him on May the 6th in the year 1944. Yeah, so that's exactly 1 month before D-Day. And they got married. Yeah, he was named Billy. Kik and Billy got married, but only 4 months later, this Billy got shot during the war, and he died. And then Kik became a widow. Yeah, she was then named Lady Hartington, and she became a widow, a very wealthy widow, but a widow. And the only one present at her marriage was her elder brother Joe Jr., because the rest of the family didn't think it was important for them to come over and have their daughter, to see their daughter get married. I think that's remarkable. Why? Yeah, the story tells us that her father didn't approve of this marriage. Then Joe Jr., yeah, the eldest son of Joe Sr., and he was at that time one of the richest men in the USA, very wealthy, very powerful. And this Joe Jr. volunteered to be a pilot on this airplane, together with another pilot. And their mission was to fly this airplane to France and then on time jump out of this plane with a parachute so that this plane would crash onto the Germans and it would explode because it was stuffed with explosions. So it was a kind of kamikaze flight, but then you exit the plane in time. That was the idea. So a kind of drone then, because it was set on automatic pilot and it would crash into the forces of Germany. That was the whole plan. But we all know that sons of a rich family, they all come back as heroes, but they never did really something heroic. Yeah, it's all fake. The real heroes are always poor people's children. Yeah, and poor people's children are sent into the war and they die there. But rich people's children hardly ever die in the war. It's all fake. It's all set up. So the story that this guy was lost in action, is more than fishy. Yeah, he was 29 years old when he volunteered for this very dangerous mission. They told him how dangerous it was. And indeed, this plane was blown into pieces before they ejected. At least that's what we're told. And how do we know this? Well, there was another plane on the tail of this plane. And that other plane was filming it. How convenient. Have you ever heard of a secret mission trying to bomb the enemy, which you have another plane on the tail with a film camera? The risk of getting detected is twice as big if you go with two planes. So this is completely silly. But this is what happened. So we have a video in which we can see that this plane is blown into pieces. And that's the only evidence we have, because never ever was a little piece found of Joe Jr., nor of the other guy. So the real story is they were never on the plane when it exploded, but because there was a video made of it, Joe Sr. could tell everybody, no, my son really died and I'm grieving. But this whole death was staged. Yeah, he never really died. So then Joe Jr. went underground, and why that was, I'll come back to that. And the same thing then later happened with Kik, because Kik found a new lover, another guy, very wealthy. His fortune was at that moment 45 million pounds. Yeah, she was not married to this guy, but she wanted to get married with him. But she was on a plane with him from Paris to the south of France with two other guys. And somehow this plane crashed into the floor, to the ground, and they all four died. Again, here, no real evidence, only a completely crushed plane. So this is another fishy story. Yeah, they were in this plane and it flew to the ground in heavy weather. That's what we're told. So first her husband dies and then she dies herself. What a tragedy. Here we see Joe Sr. with his wife Rose. But Rose thought she could only have sex with her husband, yeah, only be intimate with him when they were doing it in order to get a child. But without that purpose, she didn't want to do it, so to say. So he had many different affairs next to his marriage, yeah. One of it was, for instance, with this young lady. And I think it's very impudent of him to take a picture with his wife and his lover. Yeah, his personal secretary, he appointed her when she was only 24 years old. Her name is Janet Desrochers. And he was doing it with her. Yeah, another picture of her. And of course, Rose knew about this. And that's why she doesn't laugh that. But he, of course, look at his face. He's very happy with the situation. Yeah, he was one of the richest men in the USA in those days. And then his second son, Jack, or as most people nowadays call him JFK, Jack married with Jacqueline Lee Bouvier. And of course, she looked very pretty, he looked very pretty, so this was a kind of marriage of the century. 1953. But they were not too fortunate with the children, because the first child was born deaf, so it was a stillborn, it was a girl. And also their youngest child, he only lived for 3 days. So 2 dead children, but the other 2, they became grown-ups. And Caroline even became ambassador to Japan. And we'll come back to his son, because John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr. is also part of this story. And of course, you know about his romance with Marilyn Monroe. And it was not just a simple romance. Yeah, they were lovers for a long time. Yeah, you can see, if you look carefully, JFK and Marilyn here. Marilyn Monroe was not her real name. Her real name was Norma Jean Mortensen. And on August the 5th in 1962, so a year before JFK had his thing in Dallas, Yeah, she was found nude, so naked, in an hotel, oh sorry, in her own apartment in LA, Los Angeles, in California. And the story says that she took an overdose, but the story is also very fishy. Yeah, some say it was an accident, some say it was a suicide, some say she was murdered, but I say it was staged. Why? Because this was the picture released of her dead body. And this to me doesn't look like Marilyn at all. So this story is not true either. She did not really die. Another corpse was put there and everybody was made to believe that it was Norma Jean Mortensen or Marilyn Monroe, but she got exit, a staged exit to the underground world, and I'll come back to this. In my previous video of Pateo Television, I explained why the JFK so-called assassination was staged. In that video, I compared the Zapruder video with all kinds of photographs taken that very day, and then you see they do not match. So the story here is it was a film set, and they produced this fake assassination in order to give also JFK or Jack Kennedy a staged exit to the underworld. That's what really happened. And before that, he had also a relation with this lady, Mary Meyer. Yeah, here you can see JFK and Mary together. And here is another picture. He's sitting next to her, and Jackie is sitting on the same couch. So he has the same style of as his father did. Yeah, he doesn't care too much. He's doing it all in the open. And of course, Jackie knew that he was having romances next to her marriage with him. Must have been hard for her. Yeah, so these are all pictures of Mary Eno Pinchet Meyer. And she died a year later, yeah, 1964. Well, I use the word died, but is it really true? Yeah, there were witnesses and she was shot twice from close distance, point blank, so to say. But the problem is with all this, yeah, there were witnesses and so on, and there was a corpse found and so on. But the problem is, yeah, here you see that it was admitted, another mistress of JFK. But this is the picture I just showed, yeah, a short one of that, I cut out. And later she was seen again. How is this possible? Yeah, is this a lookalike or is this the same lady? You can decide. But my conclusion is this was also a staged murder. She didn't really die. And then, yeah, this was actually the love of his life. This was the woman he met before Jackie. And when he met her, she was divorced. Yeah, it happened in 1944. Here you can see the young Jack together with this woman, Florence Ida Pinchet. And because he was Roman Catholic, his father didn't allow him to marry a divorced woman. So it was a no-go. But he was very much in love with her. And later, she married to this guy, Earl Edward Taylor Smith, and he became the USA ambassador to Cuba. So we see many ambassadors in this story, don't you think? Anyway, she died also in the year 65, very early as well. Was this a real death? Well, I also put a major question mark here, because I think she also went to the underground world to entertain JFK. And then we had one about a century before this, the shooting or murder of Abraham Lincoln. Yeah, this happened in the year 1865 on April 14th, which was Good Friday of that year. And he was 56 years old when this happened. And the story tells us that this guy, John Wilkes Booth, yeah, this is a reenactment, yeah, but the real John Wilkes Booth was a stage actor. So he was somehow able to come from behind with a gun, because he was allowed behind the stage, so to say. And then he shot Abraham Lincoln, at least that's the official story. And then he jumped off the balcony in order to escape. I think he could have better taken the same door out from which he came in. But he jumped on the balcony so that everybody could see him. And then he tried to make his way out. But he failed, of course, and he was apprehended. But in this depiction, yeah, it's not that difficult to jump from the balcony to the stage. But in real, this balcony is much higher. Yeah, this is at least, how much feet? I'm not sure how much, but it's high. Yeah, you can see here the ladder, so you have to climb here, and then higher is the balcony. So maybe this is, 4 or 5 people high. So that's a huge jump. Yeah, plus the fence here. Anyway, and people also told me that this stage was in the old days even lower because the stage was made higher. So then the jump would have been even more. Anyway, the story here is a little bit fishy, and some say also this murder was staged. I cannot prove this. I didn't do much investigation in this. There's only one picture of Abraham Lincoln in a coffin, and yeah, it's up to you to decide if this is true or not. To me, it's a question mark. But what is not a question mark to me is the coincidences, and they are too many to be coincidence. Yeah, Lincoln was elected to the Congress in the year 1846, and exactly 100 years later, 1946, Jack Kennedy was elected to Congress. Elected to President Lincoln, 1860. Kennedy, 1960. Yeah, both wives lost a child when they were living in the White House. Lincoln had a secretary named Kennedy. Kennedy had a secretary named Lincoln. Can you believe this? Yeah, they were both shot in the head, or allegedly shot in the head, in the presence of their wife. Actually, the wife sitting right next to them. Lincoln was shot in a Ford theater. Kennedy was shot in a Lincoln, which is a car made by Ford. Both happened on a Friday. The perpetrator, the alleged perpetrator, in both cases, they had a name consisting of 15 letters. And that's meaningful to me also. Yeah, go, for instance, examine Skull and Bones. Every year they allow 15 members to enter. Yeah, so 15 is also meaningful, but I will not go into that right here. Yeah, and very fortunate that for the people who want to keep this concealed, the alleged killers were both killed before brought to trial. And then the final one, both were succeeded by a guy who had a last name Johnson. And Andrew Johnson, who succeeded Lincoln, was born in 1808, while Lyndon Johnson, who succeeded Kennedy, was born in 1908. If you think that this is all coincidence, then you better stop watching this video. Then this video is not meant for you. Yeah, this is clear case of showing off. They are so powerful, the people who organize this, they are so powerful that they can control every tiny little detail. Yeah, they are showing off how powerful they really are. Yeah, at least the JFK case is completely staged. I proved that in the previous video, 39 of Pateo TV. But maybe also this one was staged. I don't know for sure. But at least the second one. And then, yeah, the numerological value of Lee Harvey Oswald is 13. And also John W. Booth, so if you make the second name only one letter, then it's also a 13. The date of this was a 7, we already saw this, and the numerological value of this date is an 11. And together they make 711. Watch my video on 9/11, and then you can see also this is meaningful. And then, yeah, it's very hard to believe if you've not heard about this story. Then also his younger brother, Bobby, was assassinated when he was 42 years old. Yeah, Jack was 46, 10 years younger then Lincoln, who was 56, but Bobby was 42. And he was shot on June the 5th, in the very beginning of that day, so immediately after midnight in the year 1968. And that was precisely 1 year after, I'll come back to this, oh, sorry, I'll do that later. That date is relevant, but it comes later in the story, so I have to follow the order that I prepared. And then he was in the hospital for 26 hours and he died on this day, 1968, June 6th. And the numerological value of this date is, and you calculate it yourself, 666. So hopefully I don't have to explain anything about this date. And the alleged perpetrator was this man. He was a Palestinian, but he was born in Jerusalem. And this is his birth date. And the numerological value is 13. To me, this is all meaningful. And why Jerusalem? Well, maybe they want to remember the world of the Six-Day War, because the date on which he was shot, Bobby, or allegedly shot, was exactly 1 year after the start of the Six-Day War of Israel with Egypt and other countries. So this is all meaningful, and somehow they want to memorize this, yeah, or to want to somehow create sympathy for the Israeli soldiers and country, and all the terror that they have been bringing ever since to the region, and especially to the Palestinians. Yeah, this was also meant to create sympathy for Israel. Well, they don't have any sympathy at all, because it's an unlawful state and it's creating terror. Israel. I don't have any problem with people who live there, yeah, as long as they are not involved. They are all victims of the same system, but I have a major problem with Zionists creating this horrible agenda. So is this really true? Did this really happen? Well, it's up for you to decide. Yeah, I think it was staged as well. So RFK died in the official story. Oh, not again. That's what they say, the media. Yeah, if you look carefully at his face and at his face, I'm not an expert on this, but other people are, and they can tell you all kinds of tiny little differences. So it looks like he is not really there, and if he is really there, then I can assure you he didn't really die. Then later Jackie married again. So the widow, she got widow officially in the year 1963, but in reality JFK didn't really die, and of course she knew this, because she played a major role in the staged exit. But then when she was 39 years old, she married this guy. He was then 62. His name is Aristotle Onassis, and he was one of the richest men on the planet in those days. And he owned, for instance, a complete island. This island completely belonged to him. So this was private property. And that's where they started to live, because, yeah, she didn't want to have too much publicity. Yeah, the official story is she was afraid of her life after also Bobby was killed. Well, Bobby wasn't really murdered, so she knew this. No, she wanted to be here in secrecy so she could still meet JFK. That's my conclusion. Yes, JFK was still alive then, and he met her. And of course, he knew this too. Yeah, they didn't marry it because they were deeply in love. No, it was very convenient for them. So some people talk about the Kennedy curse. Yeah, first the eldest daughter and the brain surgery goes bad. So that might be a real accident. But then this guy who was volunteering in a military plane, and he was lost in action or allegedly killed, which was bogus. Then she was with a new lover in a small airplane from Paris to the south of France. The plane crashed and she allegedly died. He was driving in a motorcade through Dallas downtown without any protection, and he was allegedly shot and was killed. And then later Bobby was killed as well while he was trying to get the next president. Yeah, when he was trying to compete with Carter. Sorry, no, it's a different story. No, sorry. I'm confused here. Please forget what I said here. I try to tell more, but I shouldn't do that. Anyway, is this a curse? Yeah, at least four of them died. 4 of the 9 children die, and 1 gets badly injured. Yeah, becomes really unable to live like a normal human being any longer. Or is there more to this story? Well, I think these 4 cases were not really murder cases or deaths. They were all staged exits. And there is some proof for this, direct proof, because he got a stroke, a major stroke, and it happened in the year 1961. So his son, Jack Kennedy, was already president of the USA. So he was the father of the president. He got a major stroke, and his wife, Rose, led him there to suffer for 4 hours. She was punishing him for what he did to her. Yeah, maybe it was a kind of revenge for all the love affairs he had, or maybe other things. But I think he must be really cold-hearted, or at least have a really strong hatred for somebody to let him lie on the floor in a horrible condition for 4 hours. That happens. And after that, he was paralyzed. His right hand side of the body was completely paralyzed, and he was hardly able to speak anymore. And he lived in that condition until 1969. On November 18, he finally died. So he was extremely powerful, but in his last years, he was, physically very, very weak. And then this, remarkable story. This is the youngest brother, Teddy, or Ted. And he was already a senator for the USA. And he was at a party somewhere here on this island, Quappaquiddick Islands, close to Martha's Vineyard. If you have here Boston, where the empire started, then this island here, if you can see it, or here a bigger one, this is Martha's Vineyard, and the right-hand side, that part, that's called Quappaquiddick Island, because it's not connected. You have to go with a ferry, a very small ferry. Only 2 cars fit on it in order to get here. So this is very private as well. Yeah, it's not private property, but it's as private as you can get before you completely need to buy an entire island. And this young woman, she died. They were in the campaign of his brother, Bobby, she and other women. And in order to celebrate, I'm not sure what they were really celebrating, but anyway, they were invited to come to a small mansion here, a cottage. And she died. She died that very same evening she arrived. And this was in the weekend after the launch of the Apollo 11 mission. 11 is meaningful, but also the dates, because if you look at the dates on which this was launched, it's a 777 date. And on that Friday, so then we talk about July the 18th, well, most people were, with their minds of the astronauts who were going to the moon, which was completely staged as well. They never went further than about 500 kilometers up in the air, about 350 miles or something. So it was staged as well, but that's another video, not this one. Anyway, shortly after 11 p.m., so close to midnight, Ted offered her a ride to the ferry. But she didn't tell her friends that she got a ride. She didn't even tell her friends that she was going away. And she also left her purse at the cottage. So clearly she wasn't really departing, she was taken away, either by him or by other people. We don't know about this, but let's say he did it. Ted did it himself. Then they were here at the cottage, on the map it's H, and here you see a picture of that cottage. It was the property of Sidney K. Lawrence, a lawyer, and they were allowed to use this cottage. And then, yeah, he took his car, or somebody else, but let's say Ted did it. And then instead of taking here at the end of the road, this road here, the red one, to the left to the ferry, because here is the ferry, he took a right turn and he went to this small bridge, and somehow the car ended up in the water, and she drowned. But experts say she lived for quite some time, so she had a really horrible death, drowning in the car and unable to get out. So is this murder? This is definitely murder. Did Ted Kennedy do it? Well, not sure. What is sure is that only the next day the police was informed, and before he called the police, he first called his lawyer, and he called the parents of this woman, Mary Jo Kopechny. So this is very fishy, very fishy. And what is also very fishy is that there were 6 elderly men. Yeah, they were all in the late 30s or 40s. Ted Kennedy with his cousin, Joseph Cargan. Yeah, they were about the same age. And these 6 men were in a small cottage with 6 single women. Yeah, all men were married, if I'm correct. Yeah, at least most of them. And Ted Kennedy, yeah, unfortunately, his wife was ill, so she couldn't come. That's, of course, a bogus story. Yeah, 6 married men had a wild weekend with 6 young single women with sex, drugs, and maybe rock and roll as well. But at least sex and drugs and alcohol. That's what we know. So was she murdered? Yes, she was murdered. Why was she murdered? Well, maybe Ted was bragging. Maybe he was bragging that his brothers didn't really die. Neither Bobby, who married Jo Kopechny, really knew well because she worked for him. And these were the so-called boiler room girls. But maybe he bragged that also JFK was still alive. And yeah, I think she believed him. And then she became a threat because this secret should not get out into the open. And because she became a viability, she was murdered. That's, I think, what really happened here. But because of this incident, the career of Ted was severely damaged because everybody knew he was somehow guilty. Yeah, guilty of at least adultery, but also murder or at least accessory to murder. Before Bobby died, this was his family. In total, he had 11 children. But this is not the 11th one. This is a dog, so I don't think this is a really strange child. But the 11th one is not in this picture because that's impossible. Because when the 11th one was born, he was allegedly already murdered. Here you see the names of the 11 children of Bobby and his wife. And it's very remarkable that their first son, their eldest son, was named Joseph Patrick Kennedy, just like his grandfather, but also like his uncle. So why is he called the second? He should be called the third. Yeah, there were 2 Joseph Patrick Kennedys before him, his grandfather and the eldest brother of his father. So either they cannot count or this is another clue. And then this guy, the 4th child, the 3rd son, David Anthony Kennedy, he was only 28 years old, when he allegedly had a drug overdose. This happened in 1948 in the Brazilian Court Hotel in Palm Beach, Florida. And then later, yeah, about 15 years later, another son of this family died, Michael Lemoy Kennedy. He was skiing and he was playing football at the same time. And allegedly that's very dangerous because he hit a tree so hard that in the hospital he died. He was pronounced dead. And this was happening in 1997. How much tragedy can a family bear? Or was this also fake? And then this guy, he was the son of JFK. He was named after his father, also John Fitzgerald Kennedy, but he was named John. While his father was named Jack, he was named John. And he married in secret in 1996 with this woman, Carolyn Bassett. And Carolyn had an elder sister whose name was Lauren. And these three were together in an airplane and they crashed. Here you see John and his wife, and here you see his wife and her elder sister. Her elder sister was much shorter. And yeah, they don't look really much alike, but anyway, these were sisters. And that crash happened here when they were flying towards this house, the so-called Red Gate Farm. Actually, that's the street name, but the house is named also. And you find it here. It's on Martha's Vineyard. Yeah, here you see the Chappaquiddick Island, where the Mary Jo Kopechne incident was. Yeah, the murder of her was here. And at the same, yes, island group, if you can call it like that, that's where the house is. So the Kennedy family is very much in love with this island because they love to go there a lot. Yeah, and it's here where the pictures of the swimming was. So probably they know this region very well, and maybe they went there many times in the holidays, in the summer holidays, or even other days, holidays as well. Anyway, this big house here, it's very difficult to reach there. Yeah, it's a dead-end street, so, and it's used property, so you cannot come there if you are not invited. Yeah, even if you're a paparazzi journalist, you cannot close to this. The best you can do is make a picture like this with a tele lens. So there is a lot of privacy, and people can live here in secret. So it's very possible that JFK also lived here for a while. But anyway, the plane they were in was heading to this house, and here in the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, just before Martha's Vineyard, yeah, west of it, the plane crashed. Yeah, this is a top view. Here you see that major mansion. Yeah, this is called John's Cottage, I think. I'm not sure. Anyway, here's his house, and it's very difficult to come close to this house. Yeah, this is a picture taken from a distance, same house here. And this is where Jackie lived for also a long time after her second husband died. And she died at the age of 64, which is not too old either. So maybe, yeah, I'm not sure. When that plane crash happened, the news media immediately started to say that he was murdered. Yeah, some people say they saw a kind of laser beam taking the plane down. Yeah, and why was he murdered? Well, you can read it for yourself. He was set to reveal his father's real killer. Well, we know his father didn't really die. He wasn't really killed, so there is no real killer. Yeah, the only shooting that took place was a film shooting, nothing else. So this is all nonsense. And I think also this plane crash was nonsense. And what is most remarkable about it is the date. It happened on 1999, that's the year, but then look at the date, July the 16th. The same date as the date of the release of this video because it's meaningful. It's a 7/7. And why did they do it on this date? Well, it was also the date on which the film Eyes Wide Shut, the last masterpiece of Stanley Kubrick, was released, and it was in a contract. Kubrick was already murdered when this film was released because he was too clear about the real controllers of this reality, the people with the mask and all the sex orgies they do in order to get people on board, so to say. And the release of this video was on the very same day. So why was this murder staged, or this plane crash, staged on this date? To take publicity away from the release of Eyes Wide Shut. And Eyes Wide Shut was released exactly 30 years after the launch of the fake Apollo 11 mission. Yeah, the launch itself wasn't fake, but the trip to the moon was as fake as it can get. So numerologically, this is also a 7 again. Yeah, the date on which the son was born. So JFK, his father was born on a 7 date. His name, Jack, was a 7. He allegedly died on a 7 date, but also this son was born on a 7. How much more 7s can there be? Yeah, and again, this is another 7/7 date on which he allegedly crashed. Too many 7s, if you ask me. Yeah, so the media told everybody this was an accident or a murder, but never you find any story in which they try to say, well, maybe he didn't really die. Maybe it was staged. Yeah, also he was on the cover of an issue of Time magazine. Happened on July 26th, yeah, after his alleged death. Well, first of all, we know that the Pentagon took control over the crash scene. Have you ever seen this before? Of course not. Yeah, the police does it, or in some cases, FBI does it. But the Pentagon, the military, why would the military take control of an area where a civilian plane crashed? Doesn't make any sense. So, of course, this was a military operation. The staged crash was a military operation. And his body was never ever released. Yeah, he was allegedly cremated and then his ashes were buried at sea. So they were thrown in the ocean so that nobody ever can do a DNA search on who really was cremated there. And why was this done? Well, very simple. He was not really burned, nor was he buried at sea. The truth is, he didn't really die. And neither did his wife nor his sister-in-law, because they learned from previous experience that the wives get very lonely in the secret world. And she decided that she wanted to be with her sister. So that's why they did it. Yeah, she could have companion with her sister because JFK Jr. had big business to do in the underworld because he became the new king of the underworld empire. So is there a JFK curse? No, of course not. It is all staged. Joe Sr. was a soldier for the Jesuits organization, the military Jesuits organization. And he was allowed to bring the commander-in-chief or the king of the underworld. And he was very happy with this assignment because then he could rule the underworld. And the upper world is ruled from the underworld. The underworld is more powerful. So it's all deception, the Kennedy deception. Yeah, Joe Sr., he was not really happy with FDR. Yeah, he didn't like it, but he was supporting this campaign. Why? This campaign of the two Democrats. Why? Because he was a big fan of Harry Truman. Yeah, we all call this man Harry S. Truman, but the S is completely silly here. The S of silly, because he doesn't have a second name. Yeah, he just put the S in to make it more fancy, but silly. Yeah, the story says it's a tribute to his both grandfathers, where there is an S somehow, but it's nonsense. So this man is simply Harry Truman. And Harry Truman was the puppet of these two men, Joe Kennedy Sr. and also this very rich Pierre Samuel Dupont. Yeah, and maybe other wealthy men as well. He was their puppet and they want him to be president. But how do you get him president? Well, make sure he becomes vice president and then take care of the president. And that's what they did. Yeah, it's a very simple plan. Many people have talked about this. Make somebody vice president and take care of the president. That's what they did. They murdered FDR. Yeah, official story says it's a cerebral hemorrhage, but of course this was created. FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, was killed on 1945, April the 12th. Yeah, the Second World War was officially still going on. And then he was able to take it over. And he became the 33rd USA president. And he was the one who attacked Japan, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Sorry, my brain is getting overcooked. Nagasaki and Hiroshima, they were attacked by his command. There's much more to say about this, but the main story is then they had control over the upper world. Yeah, because he knew this. He knew there was an underground king. He was not the highest in command, it was the underground king. And the first underground king was the eldest son of Joe Sr., meaning Joe Jr. He became the king of the underground empire, the hidden king of the USA, on this date, 1945, because FDR didn't want to give power away, but he did. So there was a coup d'etat. A coup d'etat, which you got a fake, a phony president, and the real president, but nobody knows about the real president. The real power was with him. He became the most powerful man then. And we got a puppet in the White House. And that's what we ever had since. So Truman was the first puppet. Then we got Eisenhower as a puppet. And then we got Jack. So Jack also belonged to his family, was in the upper world the president. While in the underworld we first had Jack, but somehow he died or something else happened, and he was replaced by his younger sister Kik. So we had a female underground president. And the Kennedys saw this wasn't working. You can't have a Kennedy in the upper world king and a Kennedy in the underworld king, in the hidden empire. So this wasn't working for them. And then they decided we have to change this. So then they moved Jack into the underworld. Yeah, that's the famous incident on November 22, as a marriage of both grandfathers of Jack, of Joe Sr., who died on this very day, November 22nd. And this happened, by the way, all after the stroke of Joe Sr. So he was physically very in bad condition when this happened. So maybe this was also a reason. They want to secure their control in the underworld better because he was in a bad shape. Yeah, so then Johnson took it over, and then Nixon and Ford and Carter. But very shortly after Jack became the hidden emperor, he had to be replaced by Bobby. Maybe he didn't like his role or he wasn't suited to do this, I'm not sure, but Bobby had to take it over in '68. And the next year, Joe Sr. died. So this is the real story. The hidden empire having the real power, and we have the puppet empire who everybody knows about. And then Ted, this is what I wanted to tell earlier, Ted started to run against Carter. Yeah, he wanted to be the #1 candidate for the Democrats for the 1981 elections. But he somehow pulled back. Yeah, I'm not sure why they tried this, but it didn't really work. And I think Bobby was really doing well. So they didn't need to do this. And then it continued because Bobby died. And then his son, David, had to take over. And then later, a younger son, Michael, had to take over from him. And he finally, that happened in 1997, finally, 2 years later, John, the son of JFK Sr., Jack Kennedy, John Kennedy had to take over, and he is still the running and ruling underground emperor. Yeah, while we have the puppets here, Reagan, Bush Sr., Clinton, Bush Jr., Barry Soetoro, that's his real name, and now we have Donald Trump, but they're all puppets. Yeah, they don't have real power. The real power is in the hidden empire. So he is still the king. That's at least my conclusion. So there is a shadow government, and the logo of the motto of the shadow government is trading your liberty for our security. And that's what's happening, of course. The liberties are cut back further and further, and there is much more security, but secure for whom? Not secure for you and me, not secure for the running and ruling elite. So the shadow government is already in place. And many people say that JFK tried to warn us for the shadow government. Well, they didn't read the full speech then. Yeah, I'm talking about the speech that he gave on 1961, April 27. So he was just president for only a few months. And this happened in the Waldorf Astoria Hotel in New York City, in the state New York in the USA, of course. And this was an address to the newspaper publishers. It is true that my predecessor, so then he talked about Eisenhower, did not object as I do to pictures of one's golfing in skill action. So what does it mean? But neither, on the other hand, did he ever be a Secret Service man. Why does JFK say this? Was he himself, a Secret Service man? Well, I don't know anything about that. Do you? So what is this? This is a reference to the Secret Service. Yeah, it's a coded message. And then he continues later on in that speech. The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. So nobody really likes it. Yeah, he's explaining to them, you can't talk about this because nobody likes secrecy. And we are, as people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oath, and to secret proceedings. So he explains them, this is very difficult what I'm about to ask you. Nobody really likes this. But I still ask you to do this because why? Yeah, he doesn't ask for official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it is in my control. So it's not official, but if you read carefully, it is unofficial. Yeah, because then he continues later on, but I do ask every publisher, every editor, and every newsman in the nation to re-examine his own standards and to recognize the nature of our country's peril. Yeah, the evil, the threat. So that's what he's doing, very cleverly. He is asking them for a kind of consent, yeah, to somehow have self-censorship. That's what it's all about. He asked the press for self-censorship, and that's why the press didn't write about his fake assassination, because there were so many things wrong with what happened in 1963 in Dallas that the press could have made big stories about it, but they didn't do it. Yeah, only now, it's already 2017, can you imagine, more than 50 years later, more than a half century later, now little by little the truth is coming out. But not by the mainstream media, no. By the side stream media or the alternative news media, because that's what I am part of. The mainstream is still keeping their mouth shut about it. They are still applying self-censorship. So never ever talk to me about that JFK was a good guy. Then you are completely fooled. JFK was part of the same club that is ruling this world. He was a major player in the so-called elite, the financial elite that's ruling this reality. For now, I thank you very much for watching this episode of Pateo Television. I hope that you support my work, for instance, by subscribing to my YouTube channel. Simply click on subscribe under this video, or connect with me in any other way via social media. And of course, visit my websites if you can. Yeah, regularly, I advise you. For instance, Pateo.nl, it's a website in multiple languages. English, of course, but other languages too, like Spanish, German, French, and so on. And there's also an all English website, holyscience.org. Anyway, for now, again, thank you very much for watching this episode. Namaste.